Hi, it's Anna Mason here, and in this watercolour tip video I wanted to show you the process I went through to paint this sweet little robin who's crying out to be on a Christmas card. So I began with an outline drawing, marking out the main patches of colour on his body, but with a jaggedy sort of pencil line to reflect the feathery texture on him. I start by painting the lightest tones or values in the robin, beginning with some watery pale grey paint which I apply not only to his chest but into the brown areas too, as there are light grey flecks within those parts as well. I even apply it to areas of the branch where I can see this grey colour. There are so many different colours to the robin and branch that this first stage also needs to begin to make sense of the drawing and start to identify which colours go where. So next I apply a more yellow-brown mix, again very pale and watery, to those parts of the body and branch that need it, including going into some of the grey areas which are now dry. As I do so, I use the tip of the brush to apply in little lines, leaving some gaps through to the grey, to begin to give the impression of the texture of the feathers. Next I paint a pale version to the orange chest, to match to the lightest orange within it, mostly around its edge where it transitions into the browns and greys, but applying it over the whole chest so that I can leave little gaps through to this lighter colour underneath when I work with the darker orange on top. Again, as I apply this, I work in lots of little lines to try and begin to depict the feathery texture. Now I use a paler version of the darker, more red-brown that I can see in the bird and branch, and I apply it with a smaller brush using lots of little lines. Again, because the layer underneath is dry, I can achieve crisp little lines without them bleeding out, as they would if I was working onto wet paper. Now, to complete the lightest tones on the robin and be at a stage where we can really map out what hues go where, I'd like to get a layer of paint down in what are the dark black-brown areas that you can see here. Lots of these areas are some of our darkest tones of the whole composition, but many do have some tonal variation within them, so I'm going to paint a pale, watery version of this dark hue onto those areas now. I make sure I don't forget to apply it to the beak and the branch. And after adding some pale green to the lichen on the branch, we have paint everywhere. This has really laid the foundations for the painting, and now I can go on to paint the very darkest tones within the bird and branch, beginning with a very dark black-brown which I use on the eye and beak too. Next, I can paint the darker mid-tones, starting with the darker red-browns and making sure I create texture with my brush markings by working in lots of little lines when I paint the feathers. Now, with these darkest tones painted, it's easier to see how dark to paint the darkest tones within the orange of the chest, and I work on that now, again with a fine brush using short line strokes. By this stage of the painting, we've got both ends of the picture's tonal range in place. It's looking really disjointed because without the mid-tones, the contrast levels look far too strong. But because the way we perceive tones or values depends on the tones we see around them, it's now much easier to work to bridge the gap between lightest and darkest tones. I begin work where the bird is looking most disjointed, and that's in the orange breast. Now the darkest tones are painted there, I can judge that my lightest tone orange mix was too light. So I use a mix that's not as watery as that first layer, but not as thick as the dark mix there, and I layer it on top of the brushwork underneath. Because the paper is totally dry, I don't lose that brushwork. As this layer dries, I apply another couple of layers to darken up those bits that need it. This way I can be sure not to take it too dark and can build in texture with my brush markings as I go. With the orange chest darkened, I darken the brown areas of the bird and branch a little, using layers in the same way. Doing the same to the robin's side and tail. And now his paler belly. I'm darkening overall but still leaving a few gaps through to the lighter wash underneath to help create his rounded form. There's much less risk now of darkening this too much because we can compare it to the darker colours. With those lightest tones darkened, I add more detail to the feathers and branch. Finally, I darken my darkest tones a little more and the robin is finished. I hope seeing the process I went through inspires you to have a go at painting a robin fit for a Christmas card. A full step-by-step tutorial of this robin is available now in my online school, showing you what colours and brush techniques to use in thorough detail. If you've enjoyed this tip video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'd love it if you'd share this video with your friends. And if you'd like to take one of my tried and tested step-by-step tutorials for free, hop on over to animationart.com, where you'll find even more resources to help you pick up your brush and paint the way you've always wanted to. Remember, you won't improve your painting unless you make the time to paint, so be sure to schedule in some me time this week and paint something you love. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon for another tip for creating watercolours with wow.